wondering why he wasn't getting papers.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Every week we were like, "Did you get it? Did you get it? Did you
He
get it?"
was
No.
mad at us because he wasn't getting papers.
And I mean,
Yeah.
everybody was sending them in dated, but
Right.
he said something about he finally found out something about Canvas had blocked him in some way from getting the papers.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. So, dear hearts, let me do a little. I want to do a little background teaching on church history first. To
Mm.
put it's not on the list of things I said I was going to talk about today, but since we've got this day, I want to do a little bit of talking about a particular subject that fits with the got everything. I have this new technology thing called a whiteboard. You ever heard of a whiteboard? It's brand new. um, it's they used to call them blackboards. Now we call them whiteboards. Um, and the word to begin thing is called empire. Would somebody look up the word empire and tell us what the definition is? Several of you can if you want to.
define empire.
One definition I see Dr. Sawyer
Yeah.
as saying an extensive group of states or countries under a single supreme authority, formerly especially an emperor or empress.
Yes. Yeah. Multi a lot of countries all together with a single. It's a pyramid scheme. The top leader is the absolute dictator or emperor or empress. Exactly. Um, the history of human cultures is scattered with empires which have risen and fallen. The Bible is full of stories of empires that rose and fall. Can you think of Bible empires in the Bible from the Old Testament? What, Alec?
Uh, I think you said empires. You said from the Old Testament.
Yeah. Well, I'd
Um,
settle for New Testament if you got. There's one there too.
I, I think I know one, but I was gonna say the Tower of Babel, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it
Well,
right?
the Babylonians
Mhm.
Yes,
started the similar. The Babylonians was a major empire, exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Then the Israelis fought lots of them. The Egyptians was another empire before that, and they had hold of the Israelis as slaves. In fact, yeah. And the empire that was in charge of the world when Jesus was alive was called
The
Roman.
Roman
Rome.
Empire.
It was the Roman Empire, exactly. And they called the head of the Roman Empire a word for emperor, but they had used it in Latin. You know what it was? They all had the same first name, which was Caesar.
Right.
Oh,
Can't spell either, but Caesar. So Caesar, Julius, Caesar, Augustus, Caesar, Calpurnian, all of the emperors, one after another, had their first name where they called it Caesar, which means emperor. Exactly. Um, I was going to show you a clip, but I just lost it from Hamilton. I don't know if you know the musical Hamilton that was big hit a couple of years ago. Um, the only white person in the cast plays the King of England. Everybody in the cast is black or brown, and the King of England comes on and sings about his title of his song is "You'll Be Back." You American revolutionaries, you think you can leave the empire, but you can't. You're gonna come wanting me. I am your man, he says, and he sings empires, oceans rise and empires fall. This whole thing is he is the leader of an empire called the British Empire, which was big at the time of the American Revolution. So it goes all the way from way back when. So can you think of other empires? I'm just going to putting this in the context. Can you think of empires in Asia? Names of empires, of others in Europe? There were empires in Africa. There were Muslim empires. Can you think of names of those empires, just from what you remember of history?
The Ming,
Yeah, the Ming Dynasty as one of the major dynasties or empires that ran big chunks of Asia for centuries. Yeah. What about it? What about in Africa? You know any of the African empires? In pre-colonial times, many of them were.
Congo.
Yes, that was one.
Uh,
and you got
I
Henry
don't know
the
if
Eighth.
I don't know if Zulu qualified for that or did
I
it.
was thinking of Zulu. I was Shaka Zulu.
Well, I was thinking of it as a nation because they are still in existence.
Right. As far as Europe, I was thinking of Henry the Eighth in them.
Yeah.
Henry VIII in England. Yeah, he was.
But no.
We come back around with him when we talk about the European
I'm not far enough back.
Reformation. Yep. But there was an Azuru Empire. There was a Ghana Empire. There was a Mali Empire. Huge chunks of Africa were ruled by a single ruler before the colonial times. Now, what happens with empires, the reason they gather strength is they gather lots of extra power. A group of people say we've got extra, maybe they got lots of population they can put into armies. Maybe there's a new technology that they use. Everybody else has got bows and arrows, and all of a sudden they got guns or spears, or they got chariots, or they got horses. They got something that overcomes the abilities of some other countries, and then they can take them over and get lots more power and influence and money. They fall when somebody else comes along with more power or influence or money or technology that then defeats them. Or sometimes they fall because they get corrupt and weak within themselves. There's a huge set of books called The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire from early mid 20th century. What was that, Toynbee? Talking about how basically Rome crumbled from within. They got more and more power, but then all of those Caesars began to get more and more corrupt and more weak, and they were only thinking of themselves instead of the good of the empire. And by not paying attention, the empire fell. Yeah. So the Muslim, the folks from the Middle East, Islam had a lot of empires as well. They ruled a whole lot of Africa in the first, from 600 to maybe 1500. They took over a lot of Northern Africa for sure, and a lot of Sub-Saharan Africa as well. They took over, they even ruled Spain for a while, and they took over a lot of Central Asia. So that there are a whole bunch of countries in Asia that are now Muslim because of the empires that took over. The Turks, the Ottomans were the biggest empire that was in the 19th and 20th centuries. So it's a major piece of context to say who in the world are the big powers. Now, in Europe, I mentioned Monday that I am recording. Yeah, I mentioned Monday that Now I've forgotten what I said. I've said I mentioned. Okay. Interesting piece about being 77 years old. I lose track every now and again. Um, so in Europe, oh yeah, I mentioned that Asia, there were more Christians in Asia and Africa in the first 1,000 years of the Common Era than there were in Europe. If anybody, one writer said, if anybody had said in the year 700 of the Common Era that Christianity would come to be known as the predominant world religion out of Europe and the Americas, they wouldn't have believed it because it was practically nothing in Europe and big in other places. What happened in Europe and Asia and Africa, however, was that the religion of the area got connected with the rulers of the area. And so most empires combine religion with governance, with dictatorial rule. So that in the Roman Empire, Caesar was known as a god. And they had all the other gods, but they had, it was important that Caesar was the head of their religious unity. In Asia, a lot of people became Christian, and then the rulers of these great dynasties were, most of them, many of them Buddhists. And so in order to live under the Buddhist ruler, it was smart not to be a Christian. It was smarter to be a Buddhist. And so a lot of people changed from Christian to Buddhist in Asia, and Christianity diminished. In Africa, a lot of countries were Christian, and a lot of places where there were a lot of Christian churches. But then when the Muslim empires took over in Africa, people realized they couldn't sustain their lives and their business and their system, keep their lives going as a small group of dissident Christians, and they became Muslims. That's how big chunks of empire take on Christianity or Muslim or Buddhism or whatever. Now, in Europe, the empire, the Roman Empire, became officially Christian. Anybody remember how that happened, or under what emperor that happened? In about 300 of the Common Era, an emperor called Constantine decided that Christianity would be okay. And he eventually converted to Christianity. And he said, okay, everybody in the empire now has to be open to being Christian. Unfortunately, he also made people convert to Christianity under fear of being killed, which is, not a great way to do conversions and evangelism, but that's what happened. So for many years, the Roman Empire was almost contiguous with the Christian Church, so that the empire headquarters was in Rome, and the headquarters of the Catholic Church was where? Where's the headquarters of the Catholic Church?
Rome.
Yeah,
Rome.
it's in Rome. That was all piece of that sort of thing. When the Roman Empire fell, then the influence of the Pope in Rome and the Christian churches also began to disintegrate. So from a period from the 400s of the Common Era, when the Roman Empire fell in 474, I think it was, the Common Era, they finally just crumbled, and the marauding other groups came in and took over Rome and challenged it all. And the empire fell, and the popes lost a lot of power as well. About 300 years later, a bunch of kings the kings in France and Germany began to get more and more power and more troops, and more as they started taking over land, and they created a new empire. The empire, the man who put it all together was called Charlemagne. Let me write that up there. Charlemagne, which is really Charles the Great, Maine for Magnus. He was a French-German king who decided he was going to create an empire. And he decided to call it, curiously enough, the Holy Roman Empire. And so he decided to recreate the Roman Empire in the central and northern part of Europe. And he declared himself the emperor. And I love this story, on Christmas Day of 800 of the Common Era, if you want to think about a Christmas present, he marched into Rome and with his troops and forced the Pope to crown him the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, which the Pope, not being dumb, said, oh yeah, okay, fine, we'll do it that way. And he became the new emperor. At that point, Charlemagne then marched back up into Northern Europe, created more and more of a centralized military state. And he started, and he was a devout Catholic, and he started insisting that everybody in all the countries he was taking over had to become Catholic. And if they didn't, they would be tortured or put to death. Whole bunches of areas where had indigenous religions, what we call pagan or barbarian religions. They worshipped more nature religions, kind of like some of the religions folks came out of from Africa, and they were against that. But he made sure that everybody was good Catholics. He made sure every priest had been carefully instructed on how to do the Latin Mass, and everybody had to take Mass exactly the same way and be baptized exactly the same way. He basically took over the religion as well as the governance of all of Northern Europe. He was a major piece of the trend of that time. This is 800 of the Common Era, with his great Christmas present from the Pope. So from 800 to the period we're now talking about, this course is about from the colonial times up. There was the Holy Roman Empire, and then as things went on, the Holy Roman Empire began to fall apart, and they started creating nation states. And that's when nationalism starts taking over. So from out of that, you have countries that had been part of the empire start saying, no, we're our own people. And so countries like France and Spain and Germany and Italy all became their own independent states, and also in England. So from that, by the time we get to the 1300s and 1400s, nationalism has taken over, and all of these people had their own kings and their own cultures and their own languages, and it developed into a whole different world than what Charlemagne had set up. The falling of the Holy Roman Empire created nation states. Now, what happened to the Pope and Christianity? Most of those nation states continued to be heavily Catholic, and they were heavily influenced by the Pope. So the Pope, also who was influenced by the kings, the popes are very political as well, and there were lots of problems there. But they would turn to the Pope to say, would it be okay now if we try this? And so that's what happened at the period when colonialism took over. These nation states began to say, and here's the trick, all these nation states began to say, you know what? We could be an empire. Each of us could build our own empire. And so the French invaded a lot of Africa and the Middle East. The Portuguese sent ships out. the Spanish sent ships out, the Italians sent ships out, and they colonized big chunks of the world so that they could become an empire. This sets the scene now for the whole business of colonization of the world by Europeans. Christian Europeans, Catholic Europeans, who were, oh, by the way, white people. And that sets us up, this whole business of the rise and fall of empires, to the rise of nationalism, to the desire for nation states to become empires again. You see how this trend works back and forth? Then that leads us into this colonial time, and the time when Africa, which had its own empires and its own cultures and its own civilizations, began to be invaded by these European nation states. Now, that's the larger historical scene I want you to have in your mind as you do your reading for this week. Questions, comments, observations? Anything you would like to add to any of that from what you know?
So then at that point, Dr. Sawyer, that's when we begin to see, and that's what you were saying, anything that was of difference from these people, then it was considered wrong. It was considered tabooed. And so if you continue to practice it, you were pagan, because if you're not going to speak how I speak, if you're not going to do, then once again, you're wrong.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a wrong circumstance. It just wasn't agreed to by these emperors that sent out their
Yeah.
Okay.
Both their military and their missionaries. Exactly.
Okay.
And they did it, I am ashamed to say, in the name of Jesus. And there's a whole theological path that we could also talk about, how they came to seeing that violence in the name of Christ would be okay because it's in the name of Jesus.
And it wasn't.
Yeah. Other thoughts, questions? So let me tell you a little bit about, go back to my other page here. Sorry. If I can find the right page. Now, this week, we're just talking about the class. We're getting acquainted with each other. You're getting acquainted with this quirky old professor. You're trying to figure this out, and I'm trying to help you figure it out. As we said Monday, the deal is I'm telling you exactly what I want you to begin focusing on and how I want you to get into it. This is not, there's no big secrets about this. And if you get lost, you just need to tell me and I can help you figure it out. As I said to Kim the other day, if you don't know the answer to the question, you should ask the question. Please do. So next week, we're going to talk about the Christian colonization of the world. And there are two readings I need you to read. One is in the library. It's in the book by Willie James Jennings. I'm showing the picture because it's on the reserve desk at the checkout desk at the library. And I want you to read the first chapter, the title of which is Zurara's Tears. It's a great story about the beginning of colonization in Portugal and how the Pope gave the Pope's blessing to it and how slavery began from the European colonists out of that whole nationalism, let's build an empire motivation. This is a very difficult reading. It's not a lot of fun. It's not a lot of pages, but it's important for you to go hold of. If you, there's, I haven't looked to see if this one's available electronically. The other,
It is.
Okay,
say
I
what?
have a question. Isn't that what you had us to do this week, pages 15 through 35?
I had it down as the preparation for next week.
Okay.
But if you're ahead of the story, that's good.
I swear I did NASCAR up in there yesterday.
Dr. Sawyer, when I was telling you I went shopping at Amazon,
Mhm.
that's what I wanted to say to everyone. I didn't want to sound like, oh, I've got the money. It was like that book, I think, was $6 on Kindle.
Yeah.
The W.E.B. Du Bois book was 99 cents. Like, I was like, so yes.
Yeah, so it's possible you can get a hold of all of the books, you know, it was, including Jennings was on Kindle,
Yes, every book that you suggested was on Kindle.
including our textbook, by the way.
Yes, I think that was like $7 or $6 as
Right.
well.
It's not cheap, but it's a whole lot cheaper than buying a piece of paper, having him ship it to you. I'm sorry, I don't find online things, but at least it's online that way. So yeah, there's an option if you don't want to or can't get to the library, you want to have it in your hand to be able to read and study. There's a way to do. There's a way of doing that. So yeah, I'm sorry if there's confusion about whether that was for this week or next week, but at least
No, that's fine.
at
That means
least
I need
you got
to,
a
I
week
can
of
go
time.
back and reread it again because I felt like I had rushed myself because I was like, oh my God, I gotta have this for class. And, so I get to go back and kind of do it again and absorb it a little bit more. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I was like, wow, some things I knew, but it was eye-catching but I can absorb it a little bit more. So that's fine. That's fine.
So this is my weird logic. I put it in the module for this week as preparation for next week, and I bet it would made it look like it was assignment for this week.
Okay.
But I thought I can let you know this week. By the end of this week, this is what you start looking at for next week. That's the reason I put it in there, and it's listed as preparation for next week.
Okay.
The other reading for next week is the historical sources of white supremacy, which I have placed on the module. I don't know if it was for this week or next week. It's a 4 or 5 page paper that I wrote to lay out a whole bunch more of my description of the process that led to the creation and enthronement of white supremacy in European culture around the world, but particularly in America and in the church, in the white folks' church. It's a shortcut. It's not everything, but I give you some of the references as well with that. So I want you to read those 2 things for next week.
What did you say was history of white supremacy?
Yeah, the historical sources of white supremacy. And you can find it on modules. Everything I need you to do is on the module page for either this week or next week. You don't need to be hunting through assignments and looking through Canvas everywhere else. If you find this class, you go on the left-hand side to modules, and then each week is laid out in very careful, maybe not always as clear as it ought to be. Gary pointed out to me the other day how much I needed to clarify a couple of things, which I have done. But I try to make it so you and I can be on the same wavelength. Here is what you need to do. Then, so the logic is, here's the assignment for next week's class. Start reading. There's a list of questions that I'd like you to kind of be thinking about as you're reading and thinking about it. That's not for you to write about. It's just to be ready to discuss in class. Okay. So in advance, here's the reading assignment. Next week on Monday and Wednesday, We will talk about that, all that material. And I will try to bring it to life for you in the little ways I can tell you some stories and make it pop for you. You can talk about it, ask questions about it, tell me what your impressions are of it, and we'll all gain from that conversation. The assignment then at the end of next week is the reading report. Every week, reading report number 1 is due next Friday, the 12th or something of February. And your reading report is a very simple 1-page report. I need to know what you got out of that reading. And I have in the description of that report under modules, it says, here are the things I want you to do, including the last one is ask a question that you're not clear about this material. So then you can type that, as Mr. Holbrook says, type that up yourself and then apply it to the Canvas page. If that doesn't work, you can just email it to me one way or another. I'll get it, I'll grade it and get it back to you. Each one of those is worth 2 points. Over the period of the semester, then we're doing, I think, 9 or 10 reading reports. So that becomes basically 10% of your class grade. So it's not huge. The purpose of this is not to achieve, but so that you and I both know we're on the right wavelength here. I'm getting through to you. You're getting what I'm asking you to read, and I can help you make some sense out of it. So that's what's going to happen next week. Here's the readings for the 2 pieces of readings. We're going to talk about it next week, and by the end of the week, by Friday, I want you to turn in the 1-page reading report. Not onerous. Questions about that?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Is your book on Kindle? Wait a minute. I think I got everything but your book.
My
Is your
book.
book on Kindle?
What my book are you talking about?
The 4 pages.
Did you just mention the history of white supremacy?
No, it's on Canvas.
Okay, it's on Canvas.
It's in digital form on Canvas.
Thank you. Because that was one I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's a 4-page paper that you just click on that page on the module and it'll pop right up as a Word, as a Word document. Yes. You threw me off. It's not a book, it's just a paper.
Threw me off. Thank you.
Good question. Other questions? Now, looking ahead, we're going to, let's see, next week we're going to talk about colonialism and how the whole business of the nation empires started taking over, and including taking over the Western Hemisphere. I'm flipping through here. The following week, we will discuss the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation in Europe. While I'm trying to make this as much as I can a non-Eurocentric sense of history, you need to know the historical sources of most of the Christian experience in America, which got shaped by the Reformation in Europe, which is in the 15th, 16th centuries in Europe, whereby instead of everybody being Catholic as they were before that time, all of a sudden there are Lutherans and Presbyterians and Episcopalians and Methodists and Baptists. None of that existed before then. And so how did all of the things we think of as church today that's not Catholic, that all started then? And I want you to see where it came from and how it happened and get some sense of the stories of the Reformation. And that's week of the 15th. February 22nd, I'll be asking you to do a little reading about the religion of the captured and enslaved Africans. The basic historical reality is the people who were captured and brought to the Americas weren't unreligious people. They were very religious people. What was their religion? Some of them were Muslims. Some of them were Christians. Some of them, most of them, were probably of indigenous African religions, and we'll study about what that was, because that mix of religions gets carried into the creation of the Black church in America. So it's very important for us to have that piece, and we'll be reading about that. That's the next things, and then we'll have a midterm exam, and then you'll have a whole week off of midterm break, in which you'll be catching up on all your reading and doing all your papers. I know you'll be very busy that week. Ha ha ha.
You're telling the truth, though.
Now, for the second half of the semester, what we're going to do is we're going to study 4 basic movements of Black religion in America. We're going to study Black Methodism. We're going to study Black Baptists. We're going to study Black Pentecostals, and then we're going to study I'm almost blanked on it. I'm sorry. My mind, prosperity movement. Okay, very big in the mega churches of America today. All of that is a piece of the thread of the development of Black religion in America, and that's the history.
Dr. Sawyer, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Go ahead.
What was it called? The 4 basic movements of Black. What was it?
Of Black religion or the Black Church in America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I'm getting that partly because in the PIN book, which we'll start reading that at that point, there's a chapter about each one of those in this book. Very clear description of how that came to be and how it has become what it is today. And why are there separate Black denominations? That's not a big mystery, but it is described in here. Now, here's the catch. Your term paper for this class, I want you to pick one of those 4 movements or denominations.
Oh,
Yes,
Doctor, I'm sorry to keep going back.
That's
Can
right.
you repeat those movements?
Yeah, Methodism, Baptist,
American. You said Americanism.
Methodism, Methodist.
Okay.
So there are at least three major Black Methodist denominations in America: American Methodist, African Methodist Episcopal, and the African Methodist Episcopal Zion, and Christian Methodist Episcopal churches. They all have a Methodist background and polity. Okay. Second one is the Baptists. You know any Baptist churches?
Yes.
There are a few of those around.
Yes.
The third group is the Pentecostals.
Know about them.
Yeah, okay. And then the fourth one is the stuff that is kind of growing out of a lot of that mix, partly from the Pentecostals, and that's the prosperity movement.
Okay.
Prosperity folks there's both white and Black prosperity preachers around, mostly mega pastors.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want you to do is to pick, and you need to be thinking about it, and we'll talk a little bit more next week, pick one of those things to be studying. And I'll talk more about the exact nature of the term paper next week as well. And Ms. Linda Ellison, the writing coach, is going to visit us on Monday and talk about the help she can offer you in writing your papers. And she's a fabulous writing coach, and she can help you with how do you get started, how do you understand what you're being asked to do, how do you write and get starting, and how do you put it in the proper form, grammatically, spelling wise, and in terms of avoiding plagiarism. Those are the things she can help you with. This is a 5-page paper, so it's not terribly onerous. It is has to be in good form, college form, with good writing and grammar and punctuation and spelling, as well as citing your references. I want you to get at least 3 other books besides the textbook of the class to look up the information about your movement. So you're going to do 2 things with this research that you're doing. First, I want, and you can do this, by the way, in a group if you want to get together with somebody else and study this, or you can do it by yourself, either way. But I want you to make a presentation in class the week we studied that topic. So if you choose Methodism, the week after spring break, we'll spend some time for student reports on what you have learned about that denomination's movement, how it came to be, and how it's being manifested today. The following week, we'll talk about the Baptists, and that those individuals can make your brief reports in class, what you've been learning. And so you can begin teaching the class. I don't have to do everything. Why should I have to do everything? You guys are the academics here. And then the Pentecostals, and finally the Prosperity Movement folks. If you just say, I can't stomach studying any of those, the last 2 times, give you a choice. The last 2 topics of the class will be about Black theology, Black liberation theology, and the other one is the civil rights movement, the move for racial justice, Black Lives Matter, that's currently going on in America. So we look at the history of those things. If you really want to, you can do that. So I need you to decide which of those things you will study and write your paper on. The paper is due April 16, the middle of the last month of the term. And that's an early submission time, so that in case you need, I say, you need to work on this paper a little more, and I hand it back to you and say, here are the things I want you to do in order to get a good grade on this paper. And then you'll have time to do that before the end of the semester. So April 16th. That's the big thing. I want you to start that. I'm going to be talking about this term paper. It's written up in the modules, I think right after this week's or next week's module. There's a separate module for the term paper. You should read that whole thing and understand exactly what I'm asking you to do. It's very clear what I want you to do. And in the syllabus, it tells you exactly how I decide what grades to give you. So that's no secret either. It's not just I think that's a C paper. Here's why I think that's a C paper. That's what I do with you. So that's the story. Other questions? Clarification? Anything you didn't get?
And you said the historical sources of white supremacy, is that in the module section as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's in the modules. Let's look at it. I'll look right now at modules. How about that? Okay, here's the module section from History 205.
Okay.
And we go down to,
I haven't seen it. There it is.
so pardon me?
I see it now.
Yeah. So
That's where we are now.
here is where we are now. I give you the topics we're going to be discussing in class. This is no big secret what we're going to talk about. Here's the assignment, the reading assignments for next week, which I call preparation for the week of 2/8. Giving you a little heads up. Here's what we can looking for. Here's the paper, Historical Sources of White Supremacy.
Okay, there it is. Okay,
And you just point at that and click on it.
and there's the PDF right there.
And then you click on that. And there is the amazing work of your brilliant professor.
Well, all right.
And I expect you to be duly respectful.
What?
But I also expect you to be critical about it. And if you see something that doesn't make sense, you just tell me about it. That's perfectly fine. Academic freedom is an important value in college life.
Now, back to this presentation that you want us to do.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
know, you do such an awesome job, you know. I always dig it to you. How come we just can't keep it the way, you know, don't rock the boat, you know. We can just, I'm just saying, you know.
Nice try. Nice try.
At least I can, you know, I can try. At least I did try.
No. Here's my theory about that.
Hmm.
I'm not doing this willy-nilly. What I know about learning and the way adults learn is you learn the most by what you see yourself, what you read, what you think yourself, and what you say or tell somebody else or write about it. What I say is way down at the bottom of that list. You're less likely to remember anything I say. You're more likely to say, oh, I remember, I got that insight in that class, and I remember what that is. Your insights will be what you'll remember, and what you talk about among yourselves, you'll remember, and what you share with the class, you will remember more than anything I tell you.
No, don't feel that way. Don't feel that way.
It's true. I've got
Fact.
research that backs that up. It's not me.
I promise you, I'm gonna remember everything you tell me.
Yeah, you're right. That's the scariest thing anybody ever said to me. But thank you anyway. All right. Other questions?
Are you at any time, even like I said, if we jump out early, we can reach out and say, hey, before that time of the actual turning for review. So although April 16th is there, if we say, hey, March, can you kind of say, do you think this lead in, or do you think that, excuse me, this particular site is enough for the remaining of this paper? Can we kind of come to you throughout the process?
Sure. Yeah. You can also ask Ms. Linda about those things. She's very good at helping you with that.
Okay.
She is an expert at doing all of that stuff, of how you do your research, how you figure out what works and what doesn't work. How do you she's going to do a workshop next week on how to write sentences.
Yes.
That's simple.
Yeah.
Well, she started it today.
Yeah,
Yes.
did you go to her workshop today?
Yeah, she started the workshop today.
She is amazing. She was a reporter, I think, for the Courier Journal for 100 years and then retired.
Don't talk about my friend.
So you know her well?
I
love Miss Linda.
I love her to death. She's very quirky and
She is.
Yes.
She's a member of the Simmons faculty, or
Yep.
she just here, or wow, okay.
She's the official writer in residence for Simmons College.
I don't want to stalk the lady, but I just kind of, okay.
She's open to your stalking her.
She is. She tells you that she goes
Dr.
to bed.
Sawyer.
She
Your
turns
word.
into a pumpkin she turns into a pumpkin by 9 o'clock.
Yeah, well, she tells me it's now 5 o'clock. Her mind turns off at 5 o'clock, but she's email her. I've on the, I think, yeah, I don't have a telephone number, but I've got 2 emails for her on the assignment for the term paper, and just email the heck out of her. And she really and truly wants to help you.
I wanted to make sure I still had her phone number from last semester.
Yeah, I think I may.
Thank God that I don't have to do that.
Why is that?
No, I got her 2 emails. I don't have her phone number though.
You had to ask her for it. I don't want to pass it without her permission.
Yeah,
But she's real good. You can call her and she'll set up a video with
We'll get in contact with you.
Huh? I'm sorry.
No, I said she will get back in contact with you. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Because she'll set up a video conference with you and sit there and go through the whole paper with you. She did it with me, word for word, line for line.
She sure will.
She was asking me if she could get a hold of the books for this class, so she'd help you even more. That's the kind of stuff she's doing. And probably not enough students go to her for help, frankly.
Even if the day your paper is due, if it's due at 12 o'clock, she'll be on there at 9 o'clock with you to go over your paper with you, so to give you a chance.
Yep.
She'll be like, okay, go change that and then let's go for it. She's good.
As long as not 9 o'clock at night. Good.
Well, Dr. Sawyer, with that, that's where too many people have so much pride they don't know how to humble themselves for help.
Well, there's that. I think that's part of it. I think there are people who don't have the confidence in themselves to ask for help. Who am I? Why would anybody help me? There's some of that. There's some people who haven't figured out what they need. They didn't even know they need it.
That's it. Yeah, I think that's it too.
Because the one thing I learned with working with her, she doesn't criticize what you're writing.
Right.
She asks you questions about your writing. What do you think? How does this sound to you? Do you think this fits? I mean, she is pushing you to find the answer, but she's not critical of you.
Right.
It amazes is how this college wants you to win.
Yep.
My children have gone to big colleges where this particular course would be in a movie theater, it looked like. And, you're just a number and but to have just like direct contact or, even my daughter, she was like, you just text your professor. And I was like, yeah. She went to UK and LSU. So, she's like, what's wrong with this college? I'm like, nothing, don't mess it up, but it's like you really find people that want you to win.
They do. My daughter was out at ASU in Arizona, and she thought it was awesome. She said, I love the fact that they get up close and personal with you, because like you said, you're just numbers,
Yeah.
And I even remember way back in the day when, I first got out of school, and my best friend, when she went to college, we knew they were just numbers. And,
So here's the piece of Simmons College that I love. It's that, the Latin motto of Simmons College. And I never can quite quote it, but the basic idea behind it is no success without effort.
Wow. Yeah.
Now here's the underlying thing that when every time the faculty meets, we're reminded our job here is to expect students to be able to do the work, and we don't let you get off the hook by not doing it. You've got to do it yourself. I can help you, I can encourage you, I can point you in the right direction, but if you don't do the work, that's not my problem. You work hard, you try hard, I'm in your corner. That's the Simmons assumption. Now that brings me to another one of my, sorry, you brought up another one of my pet things. And that is what you're expected to have accomplished or learned from a college education. All right? It's different than high school, it's different than grade school. There are certain things, and they are things that you need in order to succeed in life, in the world as it is today. And this is some of my thoughts about it. One is to be able to read and understand. Why does Professor Sawyer make you read all this stuff? Well, that's how you gather information. It's also, it's how do you get stuff in here? It's the input mechanism for your brain cells. But it's also a piece of you have to be able to, if you are having trouble reading and understanding, then we need to find some ways to help you overcome that particular little difficulty in your head. Not everybody can read and understand. Not everybody was taught to read and understand. This is the place where we're gonna expect you to do it and help you learn to do it. The second one is the ability to meet requirements. Why in the world do I make you do all this stuff? A, because it helps your learning, I believe. But B, it is a college skill that everybody must be able to meet whatever requirements are laid out for you. Those of you who have been out and working in the world, you know that if somebody says, here's what you've got to do in order to keep this job, they're not fooling around. They expect you to meet those requirements. You will do it. You will do it this way. You will do it by this time, right? Am I wrong?
Yes. Mhm.
You're right.
Yes.
You're right.
That's the way the world works. So, funny thing, there's a whole syllabus that says, here are the requirements for this course. This is what you're expected. This is how you're going to meet those expectations. Here's when it's going to be due. Here's how I will judge you on how well you do it. It's all laid out there as the requirements for the class. There are requirements to get into college. There are requirements for the classes you have to take in order to get your degree. All those are pieces of, what's expected of a college learner. I'm not going to be thinking of all of these, but probably not. Number 3 is critical thinking. One of the difficulties we have in our society in the moment is people believe whatever they see on whatever particular television show they're watching, right? They see it and they believe it, and somebody says this is the way it is, and they turn off their brains, or they haven't turned on their brains. Critical thinking is the ability to listen and understand. Oh, here's what this person is saying. Okay, first I have to understand what they're saying. Second is I have to get curious so I really fully dig into it and understand it. Third, I have to get skeptical about it and say, now wait a minute, does that really make sense? Does that fit with other things I know? Does that fit with other realities I'm aware of? So if you believe the QAnon story that's floating around these days, then all the top leaders of the Democratic Party are all cannibalistic child traffickers, right? So where's the evidence for that? Has there been any evidence for that? Apparently not. If you believe certain people, Donald Trump won the election by a landslide. Where's the evidence for that? Does that make sense with everything else we've seen, with all the court cases that have been decided, with the actual decisions of the decision makers all up and down the line? You have to get skeptical about those things. And then you get creative about it. Well, now how can I deal with this distinction between what I'm hearing and what's going on, and how can I come up with some way of dealing with that? That's critical thinking. And unless you can do that, as I said, every historian has got an agenda, every professor has got an agenda, and your job is to think through this and challenge in your own mind, if nothing else, now is this something that I'm gonna buy and put a belief? If I tell you some things I believe about my particular faith, you may or may not agree with that. But that's because you're a critical thinker and you have to say, does that fit with everything else I've been taught? Does that fit with the way I understand the world works? Be critical thinking. Fourth one is you have to learn how to work collaboratively. I don't smell very good. I need to learn how to work with other people. Why do we have discussions in class? Because we're learning how to engage in open conversations about the material that is before us. As much as Ms. McKissick would like for me to just talk, a piece of what you need to be able to do is to participate in, and it is participation and collaboratively. I need to be able to be a participant in whatever area I'm in. So if you're in a group of workers, if you're in a group of friends, if you're in a church group or religious group, wherever you are, you need to be able to be a constructive participant, collaborative part of that group. That's what you learn in college. And you do it with all this other stuff. So those are some of the things that are behind the crazy ideas that this old white man has about what your college education is supposed to be about. That's what it is. And so a lot of what I do is based on this really carefully thought through notion of what I think your education needs to be. So, critical thinking about that? Questions about it? Understanding?
It sounds pretty much explanatory to me.
Okay, thank you for saying that.
I agree.
Same here.
But you know, some people can participate and stand in the back, you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't have
I
to.
disagree.
See that?
Hey, tell me more, sir.
You on my side, Jamal?
Was that you, Jamal? Said you disagree?
No, it was Mr. Townsley. You know I got the message.
Oh, okay. I can't.
Okay.
Oh, she froze up on us.
Who hung up on us?
At least she's froze with a smile. That's good.
Alicia?
Well, they cut me out. They cut me out of the meeting there for a minute.
Oh, there she is.
There I am. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, sometimes it just Zoom drops you. You have to come back in. Thanks for sticking with us, Gary.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. All right. Anything else we need to talk about today?
I have one more question.
Yes.
I'll be quiet. The one-page reading report that's due next Friday.
Mhm.
It's on which one of these books? I'm just trying to have everything together so I can go on and do my stuff.
That's good.
What was it? The one-page reading report. What was it?
It's on the readings for next week, which are the Zurara's Tears and the historical sources of white supremacy, and the conversations we have in class.
Okay.
It's the reason I put the deadline at the end of the week, so you have time to not only read, but also soak in what we discuss in class and have a chance to work it a little bit.
Okay.
The
Okay.
class is designed to help you learn. I know that's crazy, but that's just me.
That's part of it, Doc.
Right.
Good question. I'm glad you asked, Melly.
All right.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, so I can go work on your stuff.
Yeah, get reading those books, man. All right. Let me know if you have some questions about anything. Be well.
I do have a question
Okay.
before you go. My book won't be here till Friday. I did order it, but it's not coming in until Friday.
Which book is that, Maya?
The textbook,
The Pen and Pen history of the church?
the red one.
Yeah, well, that's,
Yeah.
we won't start reading that until 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
You're good. The readings for this week are in either in the library or you need to get them on Kindle.
Okay.
Good question. And Mr. Brown,
Sir, I was gonna say regarding the textbook, I went to try to pick it up yesterday. I guess I came a little late, so I guess maybe try to, just
You have to come to the library and read the book because it's only one copy here for us.
no, he's talking about the textbook, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I emailed you back. She's in her office. She's in her office periodically. What you need to do is email her again and say, when are you going to next be around when I can come to pick up the book?
Okay.
She'll be around this week, next week, whatever.
Okay, I got her email. I'm sorry, I just saw that, Dr. Sar. I appreciate it.
No,
Okay,
that's okay. That's right.
Yeah, you have to be precise with Mrs. Keisha.
right, definitely.
And she is going out of her way to be in the office, which is not totally safe during time of COVID, in order to serve all of us so we can have this college thing. And I really appreciate it. But be nice to her. She'll be nice to you if you're nice to her.
Mhm.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So thank you very much for some good conversation. It's wonderful to be with you. Have a safe week, good weekend, and I will see you on Monday afternoon at 1 o'clock.
All right, everyone.
See you.
Take care, Lucretia. I hope you feel better.
See you.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do. I will. Everyone have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye now.
All right. Bye-bye.